Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It is your boy coming back with part 2 of What If the Love Triangle Never Existed, All-Stars version. Let's just get right into it. So we have the cast. I've changed this up a lot because of the World Tour and their placements. So I'm pretty sure this may be controversial, this may not be, I'm not sure. So for the heroes we have Owen, Zoe, Mike, Cameron, Lindsay, Tyler, Sierra, and Gwen. And then for the villains, Alejandro, Heather, Scott, Lightning, Duncan, Courtney, Joe, and Blaney. The Blaney may be controversial, but she got 5th in the World Tour, so this had to be done. I can't be biased and just not put her in there. So the cast changes. The cast moved up to 16. Owen replaced Sam, Tyler was added, and Blaney was added. We will need to add 2 extra episodes, so we'll call each episode Episode 1, Episode 2, and so on, instead of the actual episode names, because it wouldn't add up. Episode 1, the teams get made, and I already explained the teams. Courtney and Tyler are set because they are separated. After all, Tyler is really only Courtney's friend in all this. This continues for more tour, because it's the fucking storyline. However, Lindsay and Alejandro are still upset at Tyler. Courtney attempts to help him, but nothing really comes out of it. That's pretty simple, just a continuation of the World Tour storyline that never really ended. The Mal shit still goes down. However, Courtney notices this right away. After all, she isn't involved with the Gwen or Duncan drama anymore. She tells Tyler, who of course believes her, but no one else does because of her past history of lying and Tyler's history of being fucking retarded and clumsy. So this makes sense because Courtney is one of the smartest players in the game if she isn't distracted, and she isn't distracted this season, so it makes sense that she'll figure out Mal almost immediately, and it makes sense that Tyler would believe her. So another thing, Gwen doesn't become friends with Zoe, Mike, or Cameron. Without breaking up with Duncan, she wouldn't have talked to them. Instead, she reverts back to her own introverted self. Yeah, everything else is normal. Owen is still being himself, nothing has changed there. And Owen obviously makes friends with Zoe and her gang pretty fast. This makes sense. They're both overly nice to a point where it's annoying. Owen just seems like a good fit for her and her gang shit. As for the villains, nothing else really changes except Duncan is now focused and not worried on the fucking love triangle shit. And so he doesn't turn nice this season or anything. He's just simply focused now because he doesn't have anything to prove to Courtney or Gwen because they couldn't care less about what Duncan has to say because they're not involved with them. The same challenge happens except Alejandro isn't in the robot. This doesn't matter really. Lindsay remembers how to push a cart, which is possibly a main point. Owen and Tyler don't make really much of an impact on this challenge, but Blaney does. Blaney, because of her ego, chooses to push the cart, and since she's 100 years old, it doesn't work out well and gets tired quickly. Joe and the other villains are especially mad at this fact as Sierra clutches the win for the heroes. You could argue the Cody storyline could still happen, but it makes a lot more sense for Sierra at this point to try and instead win for Cody and not be totally obsessed about him and show off her competition skills, which she does here. So what I'm saying is that Sierra shouldn't be obsessed with Cody. Instead, in this canon, she's going to be showing off her skills and to make Cody proud instead of being obsessed over him and getting out early. Despite it being a heroes team, Tyler is basically alone because of him working with Courtney and the rest of the team hating him for saying Mike is Mal, which means basically Tyler is saying that Mike has this alternate personality, which is Mal, and the team doesn't believe them, so they're pissed off. However, Gwen notices the fact when she was sitting back and watching the contestants, what she used to do in Island, so this makes sense. And Sierra shows her smarts and notices it as well. So that means, not Cody, Gwen and Sierra both know that this Mal shit is going down. Because again, Gwen is also one of the smartest players in the game if she isn't distracted, and she is not distracted this time. And Sierra, I feel that she is also smart when Cody isn't there. And since Cody isn't there for her to obsess over, I think she'll be a major player this season. So the two really stay quiet because they don't really know anyone else knows it, and they have no reason to say it out loud and get hated by the team. Tyler is really the only one that's vocal about it on the heroes. Duncan and Alejandro are still heated from last time where Alejandro got Duncan out, or Duncan got Alejandro out. However, Hella comes in between them and gets both of them to vote for Blaney because Blaney fucking lost. They both agree, but they clearly do not like it. Joe and Heller are still fighting for the team captain role of the team, so that means the same storyline between Joe and Heller still continues. However, none of them really gain members because everyone is going for Blaney anyways, and that happens, which means Blaney is the first eliminated. So for an update, the teams are Owen for the heroes. Owen, Zoe, Mike, Cameron, Lindsay, Tyler, Sierra, and Gwen. For the villains, Alejandro, Heather, Scott, Lightning, Duncan, Courtney, and Joe. In 16th place, it's Blaney. Episode 2. This episode starts off with Lindsay and Tyler fighting and shit, and then Lindsay says, "I'm done with you, Tyler, we're done." Tyler was obviously saddened by this and went to the confessional and just sat there. Word spread around quickly that Lindsay broke up with Tyler. Most of the villains' team were cracking jokes at Tyler's expense. The heroes team didn't really care and didn't really defend Tyler because, after all, he thinks the person that everyone loves is a liar. However, once word got back to Courtney, she immediately went to the confessional and started to comfort him. This is done because of their build-up in World Tour, and there was a plan to break up Tyler and Lindsay in All-Stars, so here we are. Courtney convinces Tyler to show up for the challenge, and he does. Same thing happens really. Lightning flops for the villains. However, the major storyline is Mal is now the main personality between Mike and his other shitty personalities. And Sierra, Gwen, and Courtney and Tyler notice immediately. However, no one else does. Also, Tyler goes majorly try hard for the challenge and he gives it his all, but he still does bad compared to the others, and he's frustrated, which means he basically did bad during the challenge despite trying his best. I added that part in because it's obvious Tyler does not have the challenge skills as the other All-Stars competitors. So why should I act like he does? Why not make a storyline out of the fact that he cannot, at least challenge-wise, compete with the other All-Stars competitors? So the villains lose, and Lightning was the cause, which is basically what happened in canon. Joe and Heather both target Lightning, so again, no true team captain is formed, but the two are still fighting. And the result remains the same, and Lightning is voted out. So in 16th we have Blaney, in 15th we have Lightning. So for episode 3, at the start, Lindsay and Courtney swapped teams, meaning Courtney is on the heroes and Lindsay is on the villains. Which I know this ruins Lindsay's whole fucking character, but it makes sense for this to happen. And I'm not trying to make a good season, I'm trying to make what would happen, and this change makes sense in the canon. Considering Courtney and someone else changed, I want to say it was Duncan or something, in canon, so this change makes sense. Everything else stays the same as before. Mike, Zoe, Cameron's friendship get developed more, which is obvious. Tyler and Courtney become closer, and I guess you could add, this is just so it doesn't make it Lindsay shitty and ruin her whole character. This doesn't have to happen, but I just added this in so Lindsay doesn't get ruined. You can have Lindsay become sad for what she did, so her entire character doesn't get ruined, which means she shows sympathy for what she did. It's pretty simple. And then have the villains become very desperate to win. After all, they're 0-2. And have Heller and Joe hype up the team, and you can make it seem like every challenge counts because that's how competitive this villain's team is. Anyways, the challenge is the leech thing, which is where the fucking bitch is shot and shit. Shot the leashes, and if you get hit with it, you're out of the challenge. In this challenge, Mal accidentally trips Owen and causes him to fall, causing Owen to be the first eliminated in the challenge. Courtney and Tyler, who were being a team in this challenge, notice during the challenge notices this, but then Lindsay comes up from behind. She drops her gun and asks Tyler to shoot her with the leech because she felt bad. This may not be exactly what happened, like I said before. I'm just trying to fix Lindsay's character. Tyler does so, eliminating Lindsay from the challenge. However, the two do not get back together. It won't make sense after all of that, and this should fix Lindsay's character. Anyways, the final 3 people on each team are Tyler, Mal/Mike, Sierra for the heroes. Villains, Joe, Heather, Alejandro. Tyler is only in the final 3 of this challenge because Courtney sacrificed herself for him, and Sierra is in because she should be built as a competition beast, and Mal is in because of his smarts, and that's pretty obvious for the And the villains are also pretty obvious, but I'll go over for it. Joe is in. Joe is in the. Joe is still in the final three because she should be built as a competition threat, like Sierra. Same with Alejandro and Heather. Anyways, Tyler goes down, which means he gets out, followed by Alejandro, who gets out, followed by Mal, followed by Sierra, which means Heather and Joe get the win for the villains, which Joe is the final one. So this makes sense because Joe is the final one in canon for the villains team, and Heather did great in the challenge in canon, so this also makes sense in this what if. So it's not really like this is shocking or anything. And this also builds the feud of the captainship between Joe and Heather. The heroes head to elimination, and it's a 4-4 tie. And it's Courtney versus Owen. You may ask, why those two? Tyler, Courtney, Sierra, and Gwen want to take out any number away from Mal to decrease any tricks he has up his sleeve. So that means basically like if Mal has a trick with his numbers, they're trying to take the numbers out before Mal, just in case he has any tricks. And then so that makes sense for Owen. And then for Courtney, Mal, Zoe, Owen, and Cameron notice Courtney and Tyler are getting close, and they know Courtney is the biggest threat out of the two. So anyways, this is pretty easy. Courtney wins the elimination challenge, which means Owen is eliminated. Here, since the Heroes team got updated, I will say it once again. Heroes have Zoe, Mike, Cameron, Courtney, Tyler, Sierra, and Gwen. Villains have Alejandro, Scott, Heather, Duncan, Lindsay, and Joe left. 16th was Blaney, 15th was Lightning, and 14th was Owen.
How do you do, you fellow autist? I'm Mcnugget, and I'm the Chad who edited this video, because someone's fat ass is too lazy to edit it. You know, I have my own channel you could subscribe to, a channel that actually has effort put into it. I'm working on a video about one of my favorite films, so I'm kinda hoping I get some sort of view count. Just subscribe to my channel, I'm really desperate. Okay, back to the video.
Episode 4. Nothing really game-changing happened from the beginning, apart from the fact that Mal becomes worried over his lack of numbers. So he tries to talk to, again, the most gullible person, aka Tyler, but he doesn't reveal himself, which means he's still staying as Mike, and he's going to talk to Tyler to help him get a number. Obviously, this doesn't work because Tyler is simply too loyal to Courtney. Mal, however, edits some video footage of Tyler supposedly saying something mean about Courtney, and he shows it to Courtney. However, Courtney does not believe this either, and so she doesn't believe Mal, and she believes Tyler over Mal, which makes sense. And yeah, so that's pretty much what happens pre-challenge. On the villain side, Heather and Joe are still fighting for that team captain spot. Basically the same thing that happened in canon. Everything that happened in canon on the villain side is basically what happens here. Just add the fact that Lindsay is getting bullied or something on the villains team. Doesn't really matter, just add in some filler time. The challenge remains the same. I'm not sure who would win this without... This is the one where they did the obstacle course and the pancake shit. It was pretty stupid. I'm not sure who would win this without a Sam or an Owen there, so it'll be pretty even. I'll just choose the team that has the most members to lose, and that would be the Heroes. So this makes sense because, well, the Heroes have the most numbers, so I guess you could just say, because it's so evenly close on this challenge, I'll just say the villains get the advantage because they have more numbers. And then, so this is, Mal rigs the votes, except this time, unlike canon, it actually works. So the person he targeted was actually Tyler, which means Tyler gets eliminated. Courtney is obviously saddened by this and goes to the dock by where Tyler is by himself. You're gonna fucking kill me for this, but I don't give a fuck. Courtney then kissed him, the two exchanged numbers, and Tyler kissed her once more, and he got sent home. I don't give a fuck if you hate this. I really don't care. And if anything, you should be happy that I eliminated Tyler early. So because I easily could have rigged this and have Tyler get another win or something. So the updated elimination order is 16th Blaney, 15th Lightning, 14th Owen, 13th Tyler. Episode 5, I'm fucking retarded. The only thing that changes in this episode is the elimination in the way Courtney acts. So, Courtney is a lot more sad in this episode, which makes sense, which of course causes her to be pissed. She doesn't trust anyone, which makes her basically solo everything I mean everything from here on out. Like to the fucking finale, she's soloing. She's not talking to anyone. Keep that in mind, because I keep repeating it. I wrote that multiple times in here. Anyways, the villains win the challenge, like what happened in the actual canon. And since it's now 3 versus 3, it'll be another tiebreaker. It's Gwen versus Mal. Mal's side chooses Gwen because she has more experience over the other two, Courtney and Sierra. And no one else really likes Courtney or Sierra or Courtney. However, Gwen can be seen as a silent killer. Mal wins the tiebreaker basically, and Gwen goes home. So that's just pretty short episode. So I'll just recap the heroes and the villains team. Heroes: Sierra, Mike, Cameron, Zoe, and Courtney. Villains: Alejandro, Heather, Scott, Duncan, Lindsay, and Joe. And the updated elimination order is 16th Blaney, 15th Lightning, 14th Owen, 13th Tyler, and 12th Gwen. Episode 6. Nothing changes before the challenge, just the same shit I've been saying. Courtney is still alone, not talking to anyone. I told you I'll remind you of this shit. Sierra is still doing her shit. Heather and Joe are still fighting. Duncan, Scott, and Alejandro are doing Alejandro, Scott, and Duncan things. The challenge is where the course of the game changes. Since Duncan isn't on his night shit, and Alejandro and Joe and Heather are distracting each other. This is a challenge where you can find the idol. So I have Duncan getting the idol here. Because when Duncan is focused, I feel like he can get that idol. And since Alejandro, Joe, and Heather are distracting each other, I feel like Duncan can swoop in and get that idol. And since the heroes are a mess and have no chemistry at all, they lose once again. Zoe and Cameron still have no idea who Mal is, which has Courtney and Sierra pissed, but they realize they're outnumbered. In a 4-3 vote, Sierra's actually switched on the other team, which means I can't fucking talk. Sierra is now a villain, which means it's Courtney versus Zoe, Cameron, and Mike and Mal. This should help All Stars a lot because you can actually choose who to cheer for here. I don't know what the fuck I wrote. You're gonna edit this out. Good job, Mcnugget. Courtney on her redemption run, or the bland heroes, the actual heroes who aren't made obvious. So you basically get to choose who to cheer for here. You either cheer for Courtney or you cheer for Zoe, Cameron, and Mike. It's pretty obvious. So this should help All Stars because you actually get to choose who you want to cheer for, unlike you being fucking Zoe being forced down your fucking throat like a dodo. Anyways, the heroes are Zoe, Mike, Cameron, and Courtney, like I said. The villains are Alejandro, Scott, Heather, Duncan, Lindsay, Joe, and now Sierra. Duncan has the idol. 16th, Blaney. The elimination order doesn't change because no one else was eliminated this episode. Episode 7, again, nothing major happens before the challenge. This challenge was the one where they fight the people they most hate, basically the phobia factor thing, where Alejandro fought his brother. And since the numbers are off, 3 of the villains will have to sit out of the challenge, which is Lindsay, Duncan, and Sierra. Those 3 sit out of the challenge. Cameron starts off and he has to fight the Spider Izzy thing, which of course he loses because he's a fucking loser. Alejandro is next, and his brother shows up and he beats him with like he does in canon. So it's Hero 0, Villains 1 with 3 rounds left. Mal is up next and he has to fight his biggest fear, which is actually Alejandro. This will make sense later on. Alejandro wins because Mal is also a fucking loser and he's a stick. Alejandro should be able to manhandle that bitch. Heather's up next and she has to fight the sumo person from season 1, which she of course loses. I think this is what happened in canon, but it doesn't really matter. Anyways, it's still Hero 0 and Villains 1 with 2 rounds left. Zoe is up next and she has to fight her biggest fear, which is Mal. Not Mike, but Mal. She's afraid that he actually exists, so Chris puts a Mal-type robot in the ring and Zoe loses. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically Zoe is afraid of the fact that Mal might exist, so Chris uses that as the fear for Zoe. Scott is next and he has to face Fame, and he loses like he does in canon. So it's still Hero 0, Villains 1, one round left. Courtney is next and she has to fight her biggest fear, which is a green jelly robot thing. which is what basically her phobia was in season 1. Courtney wins, and Joe is up next, and Joe has to face Brick, and Brick actually pulls up the upset win. This should be a cool callback and a cool moment with Brick returning. So now it's tied with 0 rounds left. Heroes won, villains won. We go to a tiebreaker where the villains and heroes each choose a person that faces each other. So basically, Courtney demands to go for the heroes. The other 3 didn't even have a choice. So either way, Courtney's going up in that bitch. Alejandro doesn't want to go again, despite the team's wishes, because he's the only one that actually won the challenge for their team. And so Lindsay goes for herself. Courtney wins, but she helps Lindsay up after she knocked her down and shit. But she storms right off afterwards. So this should end the Courtney and Lindsay feud between actions. So that should be a nice callback. And Courtney helps her up, which shows that she's really on her redemption tour. She's trying to fix her past mistakes. However, she does not say a single word to anyone. She is still fucking pissed. Keep in mind, she still hasn't said a single word to another person after Tyler's elimination. She has only, and will only, speak in the confessionals and directly to the camera. So anyways, the heroes win and villains go to elimination. Joe and Heather are still fighting, but at the end, the 2 agree on who has to be out. In an overwhelming vote, Lindsay is eliminated. So update, Duncan has the idol still. 16th, Blaney. 15th, Lightning. 14th, Owen. 13th, Tyler. 12th, Gwen. And 11th, Lindsay. Episode 8. Note this episode is where they merge in canon. So we'll have to create an extra team challenge. And I'll just make it dodgeball. And since dodgeball is always fun. Nothing happens, note of pre-merge, it's just the same old shit. In dodgeball, heroes win thanks to Zoe and Mal and Mike. Courtney could have won, but I don't want to make her that powerful where she's like a Zoe and she helps win every time. Have the heroes be even, which means that Zoe and Mike win the same amount of times and Courtney wins the same amount of times. The hardcore viewers, which means like the dedicated viewers would cheer for Courtney, probably. And the casual kid viewers would cheer for Zoe, Mike, and Cameron. Either way, the heroes win in this scenario. Heather gets her squad and she wants to target Joe because the villains lost. And Joe gets her squad and she wants to target Heather. So either Joe or Heather is going to be eliminated. Sierra and Joe vote Heather. And however, Scott, Duncan, Alejandro, and Heather vote Joe. Meaning Joe is eliminated. Scott, it makes sense for him to vote Joe because they have history. Duncan also makes sense because why would he vote Heather off when she's like vote for him to take out Alejandro, and Alejandro wants to keep Heather in because they're dating or whatever the fuck, and Heather votes Joe out because they're against each other. So that makes sense. So which means Joe is eliminated. So the updated order is 16th Blaney, 15th Lightning, 14th Owen, 13th Tyler, 12th Gwen, 11th Lindsay, and 10th Joe. Duncan still has the idol. It's still heroes Zoe, Mike, Cameron, and Courtney versus the villains Alejandro, Heather, Scott, Duncan, and Sierra. Episode 9. This will be the last pre-merge challenge, so I need to make up another challenge. It'll probably be a team race, so it's just not hard to understand. I'm just making up these challenges because we didn't have any challenges in canon because they were merged by now, and since we have the extra cast, I need to make up 2 extra challenges. Anyways, Courtney still won't be talking to anyone else on the island. Truly make her a lone wolf on the heroes team. She'll only talk directly to the audience in confessionals and directly into the camera. Have that connection with the audience and use that reality TV show aspect to your advantage. So that's it. No, I'm fucking capping. I'm gonna say that shit again. Anyways, Mike, Cameron, and Zoe are still together. However, Cameron is starting to get worried like he did in canon, which means Cameron is starting to become more aware of Mal. The villains still don't really talk to each other apart from Alejandro and Heather are still doing their thing of canon. Sierra and Duncan talk as well, only occasionally though. But that's because they're kind of forced to, because if they had to, they could easily team up. Because the 2 don't really have anyone else they could talk to, so the 2 talk to each other. For the challenge, Mal wants to throw it so that they can get Courtney out. However, he can't say anything or do anything because Cameron and Zoe will know something is up. So instead, he chooses to wait to merge. Or they lost here because so basically the heroes win the fucking challenge. I'm fucking retarded. Anyways, the heroes win. Pretty simple. Only reason why is because they have less members to finish the race, so that means they only have 4 to the villain's 6. So they only have 4 people that have to finish the race while the villain has 6. Anyways, Duncan and Sierra know that they are outnumbered, so Duncan tells Sierra that he has the idol. You may ask, why would Duncan trust Sierra? It's because in this situation, what else can he do? He has to trust this one person, or else his game is absolutely fucked. They aren't friends or anything, but they choose to team up only now for the sake of their games. So basically, they won't be teaming anymore after this, but they team up now just to get this person out. Duncan uses his idol at elimination, and everyone else voted for him apart from Sierra and himself. And the 2 voted for Heather, which means Heather is eliminated and she gets idled out just like in canon, so this makes sense. So it's now Merge, 16th Blaney, 15th Lightning, 14th Joe, 13th Tyler, 12th Gwen, 11th Lindsay, 10th Joe, and 9th Heather. So now we reach episode 10, and now we reach the Merge. The people in the Merge are Zoe, Mike, Cameron, Courtney, Alejandro, Scott, Duncan, and Sierra. Pretty much similar to the canon Merge, so this all makes sense. Nothing really changes from the fact that Mal still hasn't been figured out, apart from anyone that isn't Courtney and Sierra. Alejandro is still figuring it out after spending more time with him because the 2 were on different teams, so he wouldn't really know. But Alejandro should find out almost immediately once he starts talking to him. Duncan still hasn't found out because unlike in canon, he's not hanging around Zoe a lot, and so he doesn't remember the prison shit. That was pretty stupid. So the first Merge challenge was the boat racing. The groups slash shoulders are as follows. Courtney is alone, obviously. Zoe, Mike, and Cameron take one boat to team up, which is also obvious. Alejandro is with Duncan to talk game. The 2 should be the type of people to put their past history aside and be able to team up if they ever need to. So they came here to talk game. And then Alejandro may be no, sorry, my bad. Sierra gets forced with Mal. I'm fucking stupid. Sierra gets forced with Scott after Mal destroys the other boats like he does in canon. So it's Courtney's alone. Zoe, Mike, and Cameron team up. Alejandro's with Duncan. Sierra gets forced with Scott. The grouping makes sense because Courtney would obviously want to be alone. Mike, Cameron, and Zoe are a team. Alejandro may be a lone wolf, but Duncan is always the type to put that aside and talk game if it benefits him. And Sierra and Scott were first forced into a pairing, so no reason really need to be behind that. Alejandro and Duncan would fight to see who gets immunity, since they're both on the same boat. And as they fight, Courtney swoops in and gets the immunity for herself. This makes sense because Alejandro and Duncan would want the immunity for themselves and get distracted. And since Courtney's on their own, she's the only one not to get distracted by things like that. And she came second in canon, so this high placement in the challenge also makes sense. In the elimination, Scott is the flip vote. Alejandro knows this, and so he tells Duncan and Scott that something's up with Alejandro, not with Mal. So it's Courtney, Sierra, Alejandro, and Duncan voting Mal, and Courtney, my bad, and then it's Mal, Zoe, and Cameron voting Alejandro because it's fucking Alejandro. No shit. Scott can either cause a tie or end the voting end the voting here and take Mal out, or he can cause a tie between Alejandro and Mal. And since of the background Mike and Scott have, having Scott eliminate Mal would make sense here because of their background in Revenge of the Island, having an early exit for the villain. This is a major note. Obviously this wouldn't happen in canon, in the real canon, but I'm trying to do that would happen game-wise. I'm not trying to make this a good season. I'm just trying to make sure what happens game-wise, and basically what if it's supposed to be. Anyways, the merge is Zoe, Cameron, Courtney, Alejandro, Scott, Duncan, and Sierra. 16th, Blaney. 15th, Lightning. 14th, Owen. 13th, Tyler. 12th, Gwen. 11th, Lindsay. 10th, Joe. 9th, Heather. And merge. And then 8th, Mike/Mal. Episode 11. This is the episode where Ezekiel got fucking mental. So, since Ezekiel became human in World Tour, we can't go for that route. Instead, the celebration will go on as normal. Instead of Chris getting trapped, let's say Chris purposely trapped himself for the challenge, and Chef has to capture the players, basically playing the Ezekiel role. Now that's hopefully cleared. So basically, Ezekiel is human, so he can't do the whole throw shit, and basically it's just Chris and Chef setting up a challenge. Anyways, before the challenge, Zoe and Cameron try to rebound with Mal gone. However, Duncan and Alejandro couldn't be more happier at the fact Mal is gone. Courtney is also happy that Mal is gone, but she isn't showing it. Again, hopefully for the final time, she's still only talking in confessionals, in directly to the camera. Scott is still being Scott, and Sierra is still being Sierra. Anyways, everyone solos this time in the challenge, apart from Cameron and Zoe who team up. Anyways, the challenge doesn't really matter because Cameron still gets hurt because he's fucking stupid. So in reality, this challenge doesn't mean anything. So let's just say Alejandro won because why not? Alejandro could always use a challenge win here. Anyways, Cameron still gets medically evacuated. So I just said the elimination order like 15 times. I'll give you a break. So the merge is Zoe, Courtney, Alejandro, Scott, Duncan, and Sierra. So we're at the final 6. Episode 12. This episode changes drastically without Mal in it. First off, Alejandro doesn't get manhandled by anyone. Second off, Courtney still hasn't been in any relationship besides Tyler, and so the Courtney and Scott thing doesn't exist. So she isn't in any drama, at least right now. Third off, Zoe is by herself, which means she has to win challenges on her own and without any help. Fourth off, Zoe won't be built as a god tier person that can't be beat because without her game, she is not that good. Fifth off, Scott is still Scott. Nothing has really changed with him. Just take away the Courtney shit. Anyways, going into the challenge in canon, in this challenge, this was the one where the obstacle course shit. So this makes sense that Alejandro would win this because he basically almost soloed the whole fucking camp by himself when they were all teaming on him in canon. So it makes sense that Alejandro would win this challenge. In the elimination, realistically, anyone can be eliminated here for all their own different reasons. Courtney, she could be eliminated because she's a wild card and she still hasn't talked with anyone. Zoe, she's Zoe, and plus people are still upset for her teaming and shit like that. Sierra, it's Sierra, she's a wild card. Duncan, it's Duncan, enough said. Scott, another wild card, no one knows what he's doing exactly. However, the most realistic option here is probably Duncan getting eliminated here. Something on the fact that Alejandro will see him as a threat, and that he's the only one in his eyes that gives him a challenge in World Tour other than Heather. So basically, he eliminates Duncan because he's a good competitor and he doesn't want someone like that around. Anyways, the final 5 is Zoe, Courtney, Alejandro, Scott, and Sierra. I'll say the elimination order next time. I'll save you the pain. Anyways, episode 13. This is Sunday, Monday. What? Shut the. I'm gonna fucking kill myself. Sunday, Muddy Sunday, which we all love, obviously. Anyways, this is the most changed episode in probably both World Tour and action in this action. Oh my fucking god, World Tour and All Stars in this whole series. What a thing! First off, Courtney doesn't have a list because in her mind, everyone deserves to be out at the same time. She doesn't like anyone, so there is no need for a list. Second off, Courtney isn't distracted by anyone. This will most definitely affect her performance. Third off, there's no teams left basically, so it's everyone else for themselves. So this will also affect the challenge. Fourth off, there is no dirt shit because Mal isn't there to destroy the robot, which caused everything to be screwed up. So everyone will have normal Sundays, no dirt or anything like that. So randomizer, it's the last place that gets eliminated in this challenge. So I have Zoe take first because it's Zoe and she's fucking OP. I'll have Sierra take second because Sierra has also proved herself to be good in challenges. I'll have Alejandro take third. It's because Alejandro doesn't really screw up challenges like that. So lastly, in fourth, I'll take Courtney. Without the distraction, she would easily be able to do this. Which means Scott would come in last because I don't think he's been proven to be a challenge guy like the other 4. And he has developed like a mental retardation this season. I'm guessing he became like Mcnugget and became fucking retarded. So this elimination makes sense because he's fucking retarded. Anyways, the final 4. Zoe, Courtney, Alejandro, and Sierra. The elimination order, which... Actually, I'll just say that this is the last episode, I think. Anyways, episode 14, which is the final episode, like I said. Final update. Courtney still hasn't talked with anyone, like I said. Zoe is still bland. Sierra is still doing Sierra things. However, is not obsessed with Cody, like I said before. Alejandro is still doing his lone wolf thing. This episode is another hard one to do because the challenge was basically randomized. However, I'll give it my best shot. So I did this randomly to see who gets which. So Sierra takes on Fang to get the tooth. Sierra still has to get the Yeti person. Courtney still has to get the Chris award. And Alejandro has to get the painting. Without Mal here, I think a lot will change. However, I still think Zoe will remain first like Canon and will get the solo vote and ticket to finale. Alejandro will come second. The painting will also be easy to get in my opinion. And Alejandro knows his way around things like that. I have Courtney coming in third. The award thing is easy to find and Courtney isn't fucking retarded. So she'll find it quickly in my opinion. Which means Sierra comes in last. Sierra is a very, very, very good competitor. However, she easily had the hardest challenge with the shark. And with everyone else being so good, I don't think anyone could overcome that. However, it would have been extremely close. So it's not any detriment to Sierra's character or her challenge skills. Which means it's solo vote time. Sierra will take... No, fucking Sierra. Sierra's out. I'm fucking retarded like Mcnugget, bro. Sierra... I said it again. Zoe will obviously be taking out Alejandro here. Zoe always hated him. She may not like Courtney, but she clearly hates Alejandro more, and he's a great player. Which means the finale is Courtney versus Zoe. So the final two is Courtney and Zoe. And the final elimination order is 16th Blaney, 15th Lightning, 14th Owen, 13th Tyler, 12th Gwen, 11th Lindsay, 10th Joe, 9th Heather, Merge, 8th Mike, 7th Cameron, 6th Duncan, 5th Scott, 4th Sierra, and 3rd Alejandro. In finale, it's Courtney versus Zoe. And let's just say Courtney wins because Courtney is miles better than that red-headed bitch. Anyways, that's all for this What If. The love triangle never existed. Hopefully you all enjoyed. I'll see you all in a later video. Peace the fuck out.